was not used. That would have been an Americanism, and we were not into copying the Americans just then, too close to World War II. Anyway, even to this day, I have memories of the storylines of so many of those films. Aliens land on Earth quite covertly, always in the middle of the night, in remote places, hardly seen by anyone. Better you did not witness their arrival. Nearly all who did were got at by the aliens and destroyed. However, of course, there was always one person who witnessed by accident to tell the tale. They, the aliens, always did the same thing, possibly in slightly different ways in different films. They invaded the indigenous population, slowly at first, then with ever-increasing speed, taking over their brains and bodies so they were bowed to the alien supremacy. Their aim was total subjugation, take over the governments, destroy the daily routines, close down the structures of all that we held dear, whilst we were trying to live our own good lives. Back at the cinema, in those far-off days, we sat on the edges of our seats, not daring to blink lest we miss a vital moment in the saving of humankind. Hospitals fell to the alien invaders. Food stores became empty as populations stockpiled. Petrol became scarce. People could not travel. The military were called in to help. World governments across the globe were at their wits' end to find a solution to stop the total destruction of humankind. And then they only had 80 minutes from the beginning of the film to its end to resolve all the dreadful consequences of the alien invasion. I always thought, thank goodness it's only a film. However, there's not a vast difference in the storyline today, except no one has been foolhardy enough to suggest or reveal an alien invasion, although it could still happen. Though I must add, I was always trying very hard to recall what it always was that saved the day and the planet. And then it came to me. In those days, it was inevitably something like the common cold virus that killed the aliens. My, things have moved on. Then the aliens were susceptible to common cold and we lived happily ever after. Then they didn't talk schmaxines, vaccines or what have you. So coming back to today, enough already. What of virus cures? Now, about my grandmother's special chicken soup. Yes, you heard correctly. Grandmother's special chicken soup recipe, an instant cure for everything and anything. Of course, I would be totally foolish to believe that grandmother had the sole recipe for curing all the ills of the planet. No, when you look around and investigate just a little, you may be surprised to find other delectables that have magical properties. Some time ago, I became acquainted with her of the fried fish balls. I desist from mentioning a name as I can see the tsunami of activity heading for the secret government stockrooms of these spherical food problem solvers. It would take but a few moments for the government to give the okay to saturate the UK. All other problems would disappear under the government-approved fried fish ball initiative. Of course, there are more unusual solutions for full recovery than grandmother's special chicken soup and her of the fried fish balls cure. I suspect that in these troubled times, not even Amazon could undertake next day delivery of hundreds and hundreds of fish balls all around the UK and thousands of litres of grandmother's special chicken soup being sloped down from Land's End to John O'Groats. I can clearly imagine that in household after household, those becoming desperate from weeks of being isolated for other reasons could participate in an online competition. Yes, to see how many fish balls can be devoured in 24 hours, or who can drink the most bowls of grandmother's special chicken soup. A national competition. There could be unforeseen backlash, of course. All those who've been panic buying thousands and thousands of toilet rolls for an emergency may have just happened upon that moment when their special understanding of the national psyche and their stock of the aforementioned came to the rescue. They suddenly could understand they would not be all behind with their stock of bog rolls in this national effort. God save the Queen. Now, no one can have failed to notice that not only has Zoom invaded our lives for quite some time, but just about everything comes with options. You've been there, haven't you? I can see some heads nodding. You know, when you telephone anywhere these days to inquire, to order, or complain, there's always options. Sometimes the pre-recorded voice fools us. We think we've managed to get through to a real person. I can see several smiles and nodding heads. Of course, it is always worse if one is picking up the phone to complain. I'm sure you've acted just like me in the complaint situation. I've gone over in my head what it is I want to say and why I'm phoning at that moment. I've done my homework and I'm ready for the fray, because no matter who or what, it's going to be a battle of them and me. The first thing to realize these days, almost without exception, the first several minutes of the call is to take the wind out of our sails. Oh yes, make no mistake. You know it's going to happen when your call is answered by a voice acknowledging you with, "Thank you for your telephone call. We value all our customers, but we are experiencing a rather high volume of calls at the moment, and your call is important to us." Then there is a perceptible telephone clunk, almost deliberate, and the voice, I can't call it a person, continues with, "And you are 5, 6, or 7 in the queue." Whatever the case may be, I listen carefully. You are not informed by saying 7th in the queue, but 7, the naked number. It's deliberately harsh to put you off by number and tone. Just occasionally, the voice states, "You are 3 in the queue." Do not be fooled. Oh no. If you really think that in a few moments you'll be speaking to a real person, you'd be in for a psychological shock. In some cases, and I have experienced this, it can be a ménage à trois without end, meaning you can hold on for many, many minutes. There is me, there is somebody placed in the voice queue number, and in the wings, the person I'm wanting to speak to. And then there is that moment when patience, frustration, and anger almost swamp, and you put the phone down. I have to explain, although some may already know this fact, almost all well-known and large companies, but not exclusively so, have call centres. In the case of the large national companies, and I mention no names, a call centre, firstly, may not be where you think you are telephoning using the area code. I know for a fact that it can be hundreds of miles between the company and the call centre. Secondly, the call centres are staffed in many cases by several hundred people working shifts and in no way actually connected to the company you are calling. In other words, unlike the old days when you telephoned a company and asked to be put through to an extension or a department, today you are eventually speaking with someone who has no product knowledge to help your inquiry, or worse, resolve a complaint. You will get heavy accents, bad diction, and on occasion the ambient noise of the actual call centre. This can add to the overall dissuasive experience if you are phoning to complain. Now, I come to the options. You know, those words that set your pulse racing and your blood pressure rising. You now have 7 options. A few weeks ago, I made a complaint call about a product I bought 8 months previously. It was a small electrical handheld blender. I made a call and managed to move to, "You are 1 in the queue. Do not relax just yet," I thought. If I do, I may just miss that moment whilst being lulled by the statutory background music. "Hello, you're speaking to..." I must listen very, very carefully so as not to miss the name. so I can make the connection by repeating it back. So I think you've been there, haven't you? Hello, you're speaking to. I'm straining every fibre of my being so as not to miss it or have to ask them to repeat. It is an unfamiliar man's name. I try to repeat it, and the person at the other end has a slight irritation. Forgive me from Zoom, but there's just a little telephone interruption. You see what we do with telephones?
Okay, darling, we'll catch up soon. God bless. Bye.
God bless. I try to repeat it, and the person at the other end has a slight irritation now in his voice as I say, I'm so sorry. Would you mind repeating your name? What can I do for you? Says unpronounceable name. Concentrate, I have to tell myself. Oh, Stephen, you're lost. Hello, again, says the irritated voice. By now, I am feeling exhausted. You know, that similar state of mind when having been queuing at the check-in at the airport in the days when we used to fly to holiday destinations, remember those days? Waiting ages for the check-in to open, then the queue starts to move and I have to pull myself together, check yet again where everything is and start to move both hands full, looking backwards to see where I've been standing for half an hour to be sure that nothing of mine is left on the ground, trying to remember my flight number to be sure I'm heading for the right desk. Well, perhaps those days will come back. Anyway, back on the phone. Hello, how can I help you? Says Mr. Unpronounceable. Oh, yes, do not hesitate at this point. Redemption is to hand. Oh, thank you, yes. I bought this handheld food blender. I don't get any further. Thank you for your call. Unpronounceable, now in command, continues. Listen carefully. You now have 7 options, almost deliberately with a triumphant tone. This is the testing time. My telephone epiphany. Do I want to remain for the rest of my earthly experience with a handheld food blender that doesn't know its veg from its pulses? Will my soups and vitamin drinks always be less than beneficial and delicious because I've given up, thwarted into submission by Mr. Unpronounceable and his telephone system? No, no and no again. I take a deep breath. Everest was not conquered because they retreated at the first large boulder. There is a telephone connection sound and I listen. Press 1 if you want to order online. Press 2 if you already have ordered online. Press 3 if your delivery has not arrived. Press 4 if you have received the wrong item. Press 5 if you have a faulty item. Press 6 for any other query. And press 7 to repeat these up. Stop, stop, I want to shout out. I'm not Mr. Bloody Memory Man. I know the children are always testing me these days to see if my memory is still up to scratch. Well, of course it is. Well, nearly always. How am I expected to remember the name of a math teacher from one of their schools 30 years ago? Dad, you remember him, of course you do. We used to call him Mr. Cucumber Man because he looked like a long bending cucumber and always dressed in a green and had water. No, Daddy's face, that wasn't green. Now, I do remember lots of things from their school days, but a watery-eyed cucumber look-alike, oh dear, wait, 7 options. 7 options. Take a deep breath, close eyes and concentrate. Now, if I cannot get this option, I may have to go right the way back to the beginning, all the way, or walk away defeated and partnered forevermore with a handheld food blender that doesn't work. Oh dear. Which option? Can I phone a friend or ask the audience? Option 5. It comes into my head as the fumes of frustration and anger disperse from my mind. Press 5 if you have a faulty item. Yes! Hello, you're through to tech support. May I have your name? Technical support. cannot see my reaction. They can't see the tears of joy and the huge smile on my face. Oh, thank you, thank you. I mumble, overcome at finding another human still alive in the ether of artificial intelligence. I'm sorry, says Mr. Tech Support, I didn't catch your name. Pardon? Mr. Cucumber, is this some sort of joke? No. I'm sorry. Forgive me. My name is Stephen Horne. I was just talking to my children, my grandchildren. Mr. Horne, what exactly is the problem? Keep calm and carry on flashes onto the logic screen of my mind. Oh, I bought a handheld food vendor about 8 months ago. It's been working perfectly. And in the last week, it seemed to lose power whilst I'm using it. I have the receipt and I bought it from your company and of course, still in the guarantee period. That's not a problem, Mr. Horne. Just take it along to any branch with your proof of purchase and they'll exchange it. Is there anything else I can help you with today? I'm dumbfounded. Take it along and they'll exchange it. Why had I not gone that route initially? No, thank you so much for your help, said I. I'll do just that. Huh. I've obviously been brainwashed by today's protocols, today's way of doing things. In the old days, I would have gone straight back to the store. Here I am today, wasting my precious time calling up online. I've been got at talking to online robots. I've become an algorithm groupie. That is the world, like it or not, that we live in today. Here we are, heading for the beginning of a new year. The months stretch ahead and we all have an assortment of hopes, aspirations to take us forward, hopefully sprinkled with those occasions that give us joy. I think simchas bring us joy and happiness. One way or another, we've all missed the simcha season. Yes, I've missed it. And it's caused me to recall the days of simchas gone by. Do you remember that time of the year when a particular generation brushes down out of fashion dinner suits, shines the black patent leather shoes with furniture polish, and finds in a dinner jacket pocket the business card of an old school friend not seen for 20 years from JFS? That's the joy of being Jewish. After 3 decades, they met again at the last simcha, sitting next to one another as the chuppah of a mutual friend's daughter began. They sit enjoying their reminiscing on times long gone, unaware of the drama in the meantime at the bride's house. Now, the mother of the bride had not realized she was to share the limousine with the bridesmaids. From her perspective, she should be arriving in all her glory to step out from her own car. Nerves were stretched. Could another car be arranged at short notice, or could she be persuaded to share? Meanwhile, whilst that drama was unfolding in the suburbs, an ailing Uncle Harry was being shown to his seat on the correct side of the synagogue, disappointed that he had not been allowed to chat up the young lady he had deliberately managed to sit himself next to in the front row. He thought, are they stupid? Of course I know which side of the synagogue I should be sitting. Incidentally, with the 2 friends from JFS, if they're lucky, they don't meet again for another 10 years, by which time one or both of them cannot remember the other anyway. In the meantime, one from the Beaded Bosom Brigade laments the loss of a few more sequins on the glittering butterfly evening top, retrieving those few sequins that had fallen like autumn leaves to the bottom of the polythene dress cover, lovingly protecting the outfit. Oy vey, darling, what am I going to wear on my head? Perhaps the parched, semi-dried exotic organza flower is tenderly brought out again from its tissue paper hothouse, inspected for signs of Lokshan black spot, expertly remodelled and viewed without simcha makeup in the ensuite mirror. You know, Eddie, or Maury, Charles, depending on geographical domicile, it still looks as good as when Eva made it for me. When was it? Let me see. our Martin's been married 8 or is it 9 years? Oh, time flies. You know, I don't remember. Huh, still on me, they'll think it's a new hat. Their memories aren't so good either. The younger generation look on with disgust, disguised as amusement. For them, dressing down for a party bash is dressing up. The grander the simcha, the more the ordinary the apparel. If ever the generation gap was noticeable, it's at these moments in the tapestry of Jewish communal family life. Luckily, for the sake of our noble heritage, the Jewish princess is not extinct, and the solitary example can still be found and observed at every simcha, a beaded bosom in embryonic stages. Although one must comment, the species does, though, nurtured and cosseted, nay, cherished by bubbas and zaydas since time immemorial, is an endangered species, and should at every opportunity be supported through the JPSF, the Jewish Princess Survival Fund. The clever girls know what I mean. As for the boys, what can I say? Those of you of the generation old enough may recall the words of a song from the Deborah Kerr and Yul Brynner film, the title, tell me you don't need prompting, The King and I. The song, what is so is so, oh, what is not is not. That is a puzzlement. There is a new simple speak. Gone is my son the doctor, replaced by my sons in the alternative market. And they don't mean Ridley Road. Or my son designs websites. So what is he, Spider-Man? What I really wanted to get to is that simchas ain't what they used to be. They used to be great parties. I'm sure you, like me, remember them. The venues were friendly and local. A refurbished shul hall with more mirrors and crystal than the ambassadors in Bournemouth or one of the Grand London hotels. Sometimes a banqueting suite in the suburbs, all wrought iron and velvet drapes in blue and gold. Not too far to travel either. You never started out 3 hours before the chuppah began, because the boat will leave the pier on the Thames to take you to the hall that's really an English heritage monument that never knew smoked salmon from smoking cannons. And then a chuppah under a canopy of cherubim and seraphim painted on the ceiling, Titian landscapes replacing red flock wallpaper, the ceremony in ancient Hebrew echoing in marbled and columned halls where previously the only sound was the click-clack of military boots and barked naval orders. Oy vey. If history has a memory, it will need a Jewish psychotherapist to avoid confusion in later life. But taking all of this into account, the real nub of what I'm trying to get to is that we've all become extras in a fly-on-the-wall film/video documentary called Our Simcha in glorious Technicolor and surround sound. Yes, I'm sorry to bring this truth to your notice. From the moment you and me arrive, we're pushed, shoved, cajoled, shouted, and made to wait for every minute of what is supposed to be a spontaneous and joyous expression of sharing of the happiness and delight at the reason for the party in the first place. We're directed every step of the way. Move over there, and not too fast. Could you let the lady go first? Or could you go out and come in again? Are you together? What a question. Does he really want an answer? For the past 40 years, we've struggled. He should know already. Yes, we're together. Yes, excuse me, that's the truth of the matter. No welcoming redcoat master of ceremonies, clutching a copy of the menu with the all-important names jotted down, cribbing note style, asking your names in whispered tones, only 10 seconds later to bellow out your identity for the whole of the gathering to hear, like you've been discovered and uncovered in an archaeological dig, missing the flash of the camera, capturing those magical moments of host and hostess, etc., in the lineup, open-mouthed, as they welcome you, as though they weren't expecting you to appear, even though they've spent the last 9 months very carefully choosing the guests to attend. All of this and many other precious moments have been replaced, including the official photographer and his assistant, used to be his lady wife, now turned film/video producer, and his production crew. Oh, by the way, that's another 10 meals to tell the caterer about. Oh, I nearly forgot. Oy vey. How much did we say we budgeted for? Never mind, it's only once in a lifetime. Everything that happens is a take for the camera. All has been carefully planned and will be even more strategically edited. You know, the half-hour reception, which used to be a wonderful moment to rediscover old friends and long-lost relations, is extended to at least 1 hour. How many veggie samosas can you eat? How many times can you dip a goujon in the warm tartar sauce? And how many bucks fizz can you down before you start dribbling the sauce down from the Yiddisher spring roll down your front and spoiling the whole film star effect? How much family history can you exchange and still leave something to talk about during the upcoming usual 5-hour dinner? Grace and benching don't miss the full film star treatment. As each moment is announced, there is a rush of camera crew and associated technical paraphernalia. Tripods and lights try to glide effortlessly over the boogie space to arrive at the table of the knowledgeable one with the golden voice. The Rebbitzin, coyly at the side of her singing star, tried to modestly and demurely look into the camera. 5 seconds of video stardom. Oh, another oy vey. The speeches arrive at the tail end of the marathon meal. In itself, an expression of the caterer's artistic talents, sometimes overriding the delights of the palate. Back to the speeches. Not so the old-fashioned versions, but full-blown. We spent 6 months researching for tonight. This is your life. Guest appearances, narrated remembrances of what can be done with a Hamisher cucumber growing up in the suburbs, and those amazing anecdotes that at least 2 of the gathered 300 guests recall from times past. Boogie time is finally announced, usually to half the guests. The other half have suddenly discovered they're possibly predisposed to incontinence. They've retired to the loos. After all, they've only been sitting down for almost immobile for nearly 4 hours, being plied every 20 minutes with designer mineral water and kosher wine, apart from which they suddenly become aware that they hadn't really anything to talk about to the people on either side at the dinner table. I wonder why that is. The big band, or disco, which I hasten to add has been playing throughout the dinner with a decibel suitable for twice the size of the Albert Hall, making dinner conversation a guess what I just said game. No, I said look at the singer's pianist now ups its decibel level by half. The number of hearing aids in the room can be observed by the number of guests fiddling with their ears or looking as though their brains have just been short-circuited. And the band plays on. Bride and groom, bar mitzvah boy and mother, the golden wedding couple all take to the floor. Techno, garage and house blast out the tunes of the millennium. The waltz, the foxtrot, the quickstep, relegated to archived video cassettes of Come Dancing gathering dust on Auntie Millie's living room shelf. Finally, midnight strikes. Host and hostess, kings and queens, Cinderellas and Prince Charmings, lords and ladies, sages and morries, all bid fond, lengthy Jewish farewells, not to miss out Auld Lang Syne. Hugs and kisses are flying amongst the departing guests, falling random, a confetti of love and affection, awash in an ambiance of overindulgence, and the promise of a night of interrupted sleep in the company of indigestion tablets. A good time was had by all. And so, scene after scene of Jewish life is recorded for posterity. To be recalled some weeks later further on, when the tedium of daily life has returned, a 13-hour extravaganza condensed into a 3-hour spectacular. A truly wonderful remembrance of a milestone along the pathway of Jewish life. Moments to be relived and shown to children and grandchildren yet to arrive on the scene. Though I can't help hankering for the good old family simchas, when what was so, and what was not was not. And so I am on Zoom, seemingly talking to myself. I can see myself. If you're out there in the ether, thank you for zooming in. The pleasure's been all mine. And lastly, may I wish you everyone a happy Hanukkah. Maybe I've jogged your memory, maybe you have something you want to share, or maybe a question. Thank you so much for listening. That's it.
Are we unmuted?
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. Would anyone like to ask questions or make any comments or say something? And can you unmute yourself if you do? Hang on. How do I unmute themselves? Yeah. Well, could you put your hands up if you want to say or ask anything? And I unmute you. Right. Okay. Anyone?
Well, I'd like to say just how much we enjoyed that. That was a wonderful, lively, interesting presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you.
It was fun.
I'd like to say that the Zoom things that we're having so many of now have, for me, great advantages because I have face blindness with an inability to recognize faces, so that if I see somebody, even somebody I know quite well, and 5 minutes later I see them walking down the street, I might not recognize them. As a result, receptions at these do's have always been an absolute nightmare for me. And my husband and I used to take the opportunity to get there 5 minutes before the dinner, so that I didn't have to suffer the agonies of trying to remember who people were. And then they did the dirty on me, fashion did the dirty on me, because there used to be these wonderful things called they had the list of where people were sitting, and they would have them up on the wall, and then people would have their names at the table. Now they have little envelopes where you can't see who the person is going to be sitting next to you. So I always used to be able to look at the guest list and see what table I was sitting on and who I was sitting next to. And then I would greet them rapturously as though I remembered who they were. Now I've got no such protection. So the Zoom things are absolutely lovely, and you can join in with things at the top of your voice with the songs and things without the danger of anybody saying to you, could you tone it down a bit, your voice is terrible. So all in all, I think there have been great advantages to this thing. But can I just say one more thing about grandmother's chicken soup? It was my bubba's chicken soup, not a
good.
grandmother's.
Yes, bubba's, quite right.
They wouldn't have been called a bubba. Oma.
The thing is, we're in a time when, you know, we have forgone most of the simchas, and we hope that they'll come back, which they will. But us older generations have gone through, I've been isolated with my other half for 9 months because we're on the other list. And it's very hard for children, for grandchildren, for everybody. And I think that we do recall simchas and the way we used to do things. And this idea of Zoom is amazing because it has brought people together who haven't been able to be geographically close, to get together, to talk, to meet. My own children and grandchildren have had to come into the garden downstairs and sort of just wave and have the odd hello. And I'm really looking forward to the day when all of that changes. But just a quick story, if I may, on joining up my past life with simchas. There were very special simchas that I used to organize. They weren't exactly simchas. They were what used to be called, they still do it, but they were in a different time, fundraising events,
Oh, yeah.
big dinners in the West End. And it was in the time when, long ago now, when Golda Meir was around and Moshe Dayan and all the famous people of Israel were asked to come over. And there was always some small story about something going on. And I was the one who was always arranging such dinners, to book the hotel, to arrange the speaker, to make the travel arrangements, to look at the guest list, to submit the guest list to higher authority in the honorary chairmanships, and et cetera, and to agree which was the table, blah, 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 blah. Golda Meir once was the guest, well, more than once, but on one occasion she was the guest speaker. And I don't know if you recall, but she smoked incessantly. She did not stop smoking. And she was about to be the guest speaker and to go on. And I asked her if everything's all right, is she ready? And she said, I don't know where my cigarettes are. And I said, well, could you just, you know, we've got a timetable, could you just go on and speak? And she just turned to me and she said, Stephen, if you don't find my cigarettes, I'm not speaking. We found the cigarettes very quickly. And another time, at just such a simcha, a dinner, their man who was the speaker was the late Moshe Dayan. I don't know if any of you ever met him, but he was a formidable character when he was a defense minister there. And everybody, the guests, of course, people do this, whether they're film stars or whatever, they want to get to talk to the celebrity and just to at least be able to go backwards afterwards and say, I spoke to, you know, Moshe Dayan. And as they were crowding around these people in the London hotel, he says to me, Stephen, can you get rid of them all? I want to go through my speech quietly without interruption. So I had to make some nice comments to the people who were going to give the money to say that, you know, he needs a little space for a little while. But these were all part of, I still think they were simchas because they were joyous occasions. And when our joyous occasions come back again, it'll be nice to be able to go to them, to be invited and to go to them. I'm sure you all agree.
Very nice, yeah.
Stephen.
Hello.
Hello. Do you not think there's some exquisite pleasure in having something to complain about? And if life was perfect, we'd all be denied that.
Say that again.
I said there's some exquisite pleasure in having something to complain about. And if everything in life was perfect, we would be denied that pleasure.
There would be so many people I know that apart from the pleasure, they wouldn't have an objective in life. I'm convinced that people are either, I've always thought this, people are either positive people or negative people. I think it applies to all of us. We all know who we are. It's that the glass half full or the glass half empty and worse. And I think that it's also good that the people who complain often complain rightly, and it puts the rest of us into a situation of doing something about whatever it is they're complaining about. If we only ever had happiness, well, it wouldn't be this earth, would it? It'd be somewhere else. It's a strange thing. There's, you know, you listen now, I've listened carefully on the radio to the news about when is the vaccine coming? How are we going to get it? Who's going to get it first? And 2 weeks ago, they were talking about it and it was like it was going to be knocking at the door. But today they were saying at lunchtime, you know, the majority of people should be able to get it by the spring. So let's not be negative. Let's look to the positive and let's help the negative people to be a little more positive, perhaps.
Yeah, we've got a question for you here, Steve.
Well, it's something I hope I can share with you from my screen. Just a minute. Share content, screen. Does that come up? No. It's
Go to share screen.
It's an, I'll go to share screen there.
Yeah, hang on. Right.
No, you can have to put to me.
So you can't do it.
No, can't do it. I was a doctor, a medical doctor, and I shall read this article from the American College of Chest Physicians, October 2000. New study supports chicken soup as a cold remedy. Chicken soup may contain a number of substances with beneficial medicinal activity, including anti-inflammatory mechanism, etc., etc. So there you are.
Well, there you are. You've got it in black and white from the medical point of view. What, excuse me though, what about fried fish balls?
I better go back to Google and have another look.
Anyone else, any comments about Simchas or?
Well, about your, can I say about your phone, when you were talking about the phone?
Yes.
One of my pet hates, and the way I deal with it, is particularly the Americans. If you ever buy anything on an American site and you have to phone, they will tell you, they will agree with you. And when you do get through on the phone, you tell them how terrible their service is, and they agree. Oh yes, I'm really sorry, but I then come out with the phrase, but what are you going to do about it? But they then continue with the same spiel. So I then say, but what are you going to do about it? I keep repeating that phrase, and eventually they decide they're going to actually do something about it, because I don't want them to agree with me. I want them to do something.
It's always, you're right, and it's always a very difficult thing. The one thing that annoys me so much is when something goes wrong that one can telephone, not in these scenarios that I've given just before, but you know, you just want to contact them to say something, and and you've told them that my whatever happened and didn't happen, it wasn't delivered, it didn't come on time, it was ordered on such and such a day, and they say, let me look into it. And then they repeat back to you from their screen what you've been telling them. And it gets to the point you've just made. Well, so what are you going to do about it? I think for my own sake, I will be really honest, either it's old age or I've become more mellow. I've become easier to listen to these other people speaking, because if I don't, I think I'll do myself some medical damage. You know, you have to think, in the old days, I would have ranted and raved and got myself uptight and everything else. And now I don't. And I'm not sure whether it's mellowing old age, whether it's understanding other people better, or whether I think, yeah, well, I don't want the doctor to up my blood pressure pill, so I better just keep calm. That's it.
Anyone else want to add anything? Nothing else?
Can I say something?
Yes.
I just want to say, Stephen, can you hear it?
Yes.
Lovely to see Melinda again. Yes. Stephen directed a show years and years ago called 40s Follies, and I was one of the stars of the show, and Melinda was involved as well, Melinda Kett, and we have not seen each other since then, and we have just seen each other on the screen, and it was so lovely to see her again, and vice versa, she said. So thank you for this. This was really good. I saw the photos the other day of what we were. I can't believe I was a soldier. I was a flamenco singer, dancer, and all those things.
Yes.
And Stephen directed it perfectly. That's all. He's always been entertaining as long as I've known him. And we've been in many shows together. And he's directed me in a few as well. So we have a long past.
Yes, I will tell you something. Pamela may remember this. We both, when we were younger, worked in Marks and Spencer's head office for different reasons. Pamela was working for the important people in Marks and Spencer's, and I was working on the charitable side for Israel for the late Marcus Seif and the company there. And they did do lots of shows at Marks and Spencer's, and I love being on the stage, you may have noticed. And in one of the shows, the first one that I was ever in, it was a musical, it was an old-fashioned music hall, and M&S always did it properly. It was never at half measures. There was always a big budget. You could never do it today, but they did it in those days. And there were chorus numbers, and they took it along to a recording studio, and they said to us,
Yes, but people are asking questions and talking about things.
okay, do you want to ask a question?
There you go.
Can people mute themselves when Stephen's talking?
Oh, wait, there's a question. So we were asked to go along to the recording studio because we were doing 5 performances. We weren't professional, and they were going to record the chorus numbers. So we all went to the recording studio, and the engineer made the guys all line up in rows before he recorded anything, and he walked round the back of us listening to us sing. And my voice was so good that when he got to me, he stopped in a recording studio and he whispered in my ear, "Would you mind miming, please?" I couldn't believe it. I'd had such a terrible voice. He asked me in a recording studio to mime. So I enjoyed doing the shows, and Pamela and we did so many shows. It was wonderful. Nice remembrances, those. Thank you.
Yes. That's great. So that's Friends United on Zoom.
I believe that the Friends United that existed when all this computer stuff went on caused more problems in daily life than anything else, because some friends were united who should never have got reunited. But we are good friends. Pamela and I have known each other, and Melinda and a whole crowd, for a long, long time. Very nice as well. We love it. Thank you.
Some people reunited too much, too enthusiastically.
Yes, that's probably what it was. Yes. So there we are.
That was lovely. Thank you so much.
Where's Keith? Keith?
Here we are.
Yeah. Do you want to round it off if nobody else has anything to say?
I wanted to say that thank you very much, Stephen, for your alternative talk. It was your intention was to raise our spirits, and I'm sure that you've done just that. It was a pleasure, and thank you so much. You were, when somebody's asked at short notice to give a speech, you were the most enthusiastic person to accept. So I was really blown away by how keen you were to speak to us. And thank you again so much for giving your time, and we very much enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking me. Please ask me again. I'd love to do it.
We will.